The long hexagon ruler from Easy Quilting is another really neat cutting tool that gives us a longer hexagon shape, like this one cut here. In comparison to a regular hexagon, you can tell that the long hexagon shape is literally that, just stretched out and a little bit longer than a true 60-degree hexagon. And because of that extra length, it gives us lots of neat design features. When we're looking at the ruler, we can actually cut 4 different size long hexagons with the same ruler. We're going to be cutting strips to start out with, and as you can see here, we've got lines for a 2.5-inch strip, which gives us a 2-inch finished height on our long hexagon, as shown by the dotted line here. Same way, if we want a 3-inch finished height, we're going to cut a 3.5-inch strip, so we have seam allowance already factored in. Same process again with the 4-inch finish height, illustrated by the dotted line showing here. We're going to cut a 4.5-inch strip, and if we want the largest size hexagon possible, then we'll be cutting a 5.5-inch strip, which gives us a 5-inch finished height for our long hex. I want to show you how easy it is to cut these shapes. I've went ahead and cut a 4.5-inch strip, and what I'm going to be doing is lining up the solid lines for the 4.5-inch cut, which is marked here by those solid lines, on both sides of my cut strip. And I want to bring it down so that this tip, the black line here, is inside on the fabric. So that way we're sure that we're not going to lose that point as we're cutting and sewing. Because this ruler is a little bit larger than most, I want to make sure I've got a couple fingers onto the cutting mat and the rest of my fingers onto the grid. And we're going to make 2 cuts, one going away and then another one up along this edge. And when we pull that away, we can make sure that we've got a nice cut. I'm now going to flip this piece around, and using this end, lining up the solid black line on my cut edges here, 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 and here. And by making sure that we had that positioned on our fabric, it allows us to know that we've got a little bit of space right here, so we've got a nice good point that we're going to be able to cut. Again, holding onto our cutting grid securely, we're going to cut away from ourselves with the first cut, and then continue cutting away up along the other angle. And I'm going to just pull those tiny triangles off so I know that we've got a good cut. And now we have our long hexagon block with the Easy Quilting ruler. As we continue to cut more long hexagons from our strip, we'll do the same process. Lining up the solid black line on both sides, making sure that this tip is on the fabric, and taking our 2 cuts. And for speed, I go ahead and cut the next long hexagon out, and then we'll trim those final triangles off in one step. And you can just keep continuing cutting down your strip and then flip them to trim the final 2 triangles. And we've got 3 long hexagons cut. Nice, perfect, accurate cuts. And now we're ready to do some layouts. A neat, easy pattern to use the long hexagons is to put them into rows. And I'm using some other ones with a darker brown in an alternated layout. And then filling in with equilateral triangles. Because these are cut with a 60-degree angle, we can use triangles that are cut equilaterally with a 60-degree ruler, and can develop our pattern from here. As we've got our layout established, our next step is going to piece this together. We're going to sew triangles on and press them away from the center hexagon, and then we're going to assemble those units together, stitching along this diagonal line so that we end up with a long strip. Once you get all your long strips pieced together, then you can sew the strips together to form the center of your quilt. And you can either run them horizontally or vertically to give you a really neat layout. This could be done with planned colors like I have here, or it could be made scrappy as a stash buster. A second layout involves using a regular hexagon and then the long hexagons, and we can lay those out to create a honeycomb shape and then continue building our quilt out from there. This is a little bit more complex layout because in order to sew these together, we will need to use inset seams in order to piece it. I hope you have as much fun with the LongHex ruler from Easy Quilting as I did. It really gives me lots of neat design ideas, and I hope that you'll enjoy making a quilt with it just like I do.